Well, welcome everyone to the first part of a two-part Gary Neville podcast this weekend. Second part to follow tomorrow after Monday Night Football, around which I think Gary will be talking Manchester United and various other issues. Tonight we're going to concentrate to a small extent on Marcus Rashford and his immediate future, but first, of course, on the title race in the aftermath of this astonishing event we have just witnessed here at the Emirates. I mean, what a performance from Arsenal.
Yeah, in the end, I think it's important to say that they were very good in the first few minutes. Their tactic of high pressing City when Ortega had the ball and the centre-backs worked for a minute, well, one or two, when obviously they scored that first goal. And the last half an hour was excellent, but it did take some time for them to get to that level of performance. It took actually Manchester City to equalise before they reacted. But in the end, it was a big statement that to beat Manchester City 5-1.
And does it convince you, surely nothing could convince you more, that Arsenal have it in them to do that 14 more times?
Yeah, I mean, look, I had Arsenal to win the league at the start of the season, and I've not changed my prediction. I mean, Liverpool are in, Manchester United, they said then, Liverpool are in an incredible position and they're formidable, and you have to say they're massive favourites and they should go on to win it. But what you have to be when you're chasing is, you have to make statement wins, you have to let the other team know that you're not going away, and you have to be there if they slip. The crime is not being there if they slip, so all Arsenal can do at this moment in time, and look, coming into this game today, there are big challenges for Arsenal. Challenges of actually having to win this game themselves, which is enough in itself against Manchester City. Challenges of then Liverpool winning a game yesterday, which was on paper a challenging one for them, away at Bournemouth, who've been doing really well. And then the idea that the year that Manchester City slip is where we're going to win it probably was in Arsenal's head, that we've got to try and catch Manchester City. Well, they've gone past Manchester City, but there's someone else there at the top, and that someone else is Liverpool, and they're doing really well, and they look like they've got all the sort of weapons and tools that you need to win a league. So they've got some battles going on. It feels like they're climbing a mountain every week, Arsenal, just to stay in there and almost to get to a point whereby there is a title race. But I do believe there is. They can frustrate me, Arsenal, and they frustrated me for large parts of that match, actually.
So that period of frustration, which was essentially the first half, that causes you to have misgivings, does it? Or are you not more inspired by the manner in which they did change gear after half-time?
Well, look, I would say, having been there where sometimes you can sort of be 1-0 up and think you're okay in a game, and you can let the game drift and you can sleepwalk a little bit. That's what they were doing. Now, you can spot it when you're up here. Sometimes when you're out on the pitch and you've been part of performances like that, you think, OK, we're in control, they're not hurting us. But a little bit like Chelsea last week against City, you can't just let games drift, because the other team sort of builds confidence and thinks, well, hang on a minute, nothing happening here, we're OK. And Arsenal allowed City to have too much of the ball, keep the game at a slow pace, and yes, they did react. What Arsenal demonstrated after after conceding the Erling Haaland goal is what they're capable of. And it does take me back into our dressing room when you've demonstrated what you're capable of, don't drop below that standard. So why does it need an Erling Haaland goal for us to get to a level that we can get to, where players are running forward with real intent, there's passing into pockets with real crisp passes like Declan Rice did for Lewis-Skelly. Lewis-Skelly's flying forward, Timber on the far side going forward as a right back. Why wait? Don't wait. You've got 14 games to go. There's a Premier League title there. Do not wait. Go for it. And that's not being reckless. You've still got Partey and Rice, and you've got Saliba and Gabriel at the back. You've got your block of four that you need. They're four very competent players. In fact, they're excellent players. So the others can really be bright and go for it and sort of pass it around. And all of a sudden, there was a spring in the step. They livened up. So they frustrated me because, look, that game for 50 minutes, probably the last 40 minutes of the first half and 10 of the second half, was right into City's hands, where recycling of the ball, I called it line ball. Your line ball we used to play in training 3 times a week, where you haven't got the goalkeepers until they come over after they've done the goalkeeping work. And you're basically just trying to run it over the line, and you're trying to keep the ball and not score a goal, not shoot. And that's what it felt like. Arsenal, we know, are very good at that. We know they're good at set pieces. But what they demonstrated in that last half an hour is that they can be good in open play if they have the intent and the purpose in the performance. So, look, they've set a standard in that last half an hour. Mikel Arteta should be reinforcing that now for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, 8 days, 10 days. Not let that go. You have to get to that level. I actually thought Arsenal would win this game 3-0 today. It was a bit of a controversial prediction, I felt. But I thought as soon as the sort of intensity of the game rose, that it would be too much for City, particularly in that midfield. And we'll come on to City in a short while, but when I saw Kovacic and Bernardo Silva in there, who are two very good players, and then I saw Marmoush and Haaland up front, they're not defenders. And you've got Savino on the left. I'm thinking the balance of that really wants beating. You know, it's not quite the Casemiro and Eriksen in midfield of United a few weeks ago, but when you see a team sheet and you think, I'm not sure that can cope against Ødegaard, Partey, Rice, and other players that Arsenal have got playing in those areas. So, look, Arsenal have shown us what they're capable of. They've shown us what they were capable of in the last half hour, and they have to now repeat that.
How excited are you by Lewis-Skelly?
Oh, absolutely brilliant. I mean, there's another player that we saw in the stand who I think every time I watch him play, it's an absolute joy, and that's Saka. You cannot come and watch Bukayo Saka play football without feeling enthusiastic about the game. You can't. Because everything he does is like he's playing football on the streets as a kid at the age of 7. And the cynicism hasn't entered the game yet. The cynicism of going down, the cynicism of sort of recycling the ball, the risks in the game, their enthusiasm, their passion, everything that you want in a football, the tenacity. Never, ever lose that. Always play. If you can play every game of football like it was the first time you ever played, that is actually sort of an achievement in life, where you maintain that sort of love for the game and that joy and that ability just to keep doing the things that you're doing. And you see so many players sort of change the game once they make it, and change the game when they have 100 games under the belt and 200 games. And Saka's never changed from the moment he's got into this Arsenal team. He hit the ground running, and Lewis-Skelly's the same. And actually mentioned Ashley Cole when he first came on the scene. That's sort of something just catches your eye and you think, oh, this is different. And Lewis-Skelly's different. He's something that, look, he's got a long, long way to go. Don't get carried away. There are lots of pitfalls out there. You'll get money thrown at you. There'll be distractions thrown at you. There'll be lots of things that you'd like to do that you can't do as a young football player. Forget it. You can do that when you're 35. You've got 15 years in front of you. Concentrate for 15 years on doing this and doing it well. But watching him today, yeah, it was brilliant. I think he's a good defender. He's got a real intent about him, and then when he goes forward, he's got purpose and he wants to impact and affect the game.
There were, I suppose, 3 big, lovely human moments from an Arsenal point of view. Lewis-Skelly was one of them. One obviously was another, who you've raved about before.
Yeah.
And in a way, actually, I felt personally that Havertz was the other, because he appeared slightly to have lost his joy for football, and that was a hugely joyful moment when he scored, and it was a very good goal.
Look, we're all different, aren't we? And you have to, in a dressing room, tolerate different characters. You know, I remember playing with players like Dimitar Berbatov is a perfect example. He'd walk, he was very serious, but a brilliant player. But he didn't play the game like I played it, or Lewis-Skelly played it. He played the game with such grace and such. And Havertz plays like that. He's got that sort of sloping, lollopy type of frame. But the times when you look at his face and you think, oh God, he has lost his confidence a little bit. And is the enjoyment inside him? Or is he under pressure? And you think he's vulnerable. You just look at him. So when he passed the ball on the first goal to Ødegaard, he got away with that because Ødegaard scored. If he hadn't scored, I'd have been saying, why didn't you just take the chance? You were one-on-one yourself. It was actually maybe as difficult for Ødegaard to score as it was for you. And then the second one where Rice pops in and gets the ball to him and you thought, I don't fancy him. And he puts it wide. So you're absolutely right. When he scored, there is a warmth when he scored of feeling that that's someone tonight who would have suffered. Even though Arsenal win 3 or 4-1, you do go home as a striker or as a defender. If you concede a goal and you've been at fault for it, you still go home with that cloud over your head, even if you've won. And he would have gone home tonight, even if Arsenal would have won 4-1, happy, but thinking, I actually have lost my confidence out there a little bit. That was a brilliant moment for him, an important moment for Mikel Arteta, the rest of the players, and all the fans in this stadium, because they will have known that he was struggling a little bit. So it was a nice moment. The Wanyeri, he plays the game again with such risk, and I'm sick of watching wide players get the ball. I'm a wide player, you're the fullback, thinking just go at the first instinct of every wide player should be to go right for the fullback. I'm not saying every single time in the game, but why not if you've got 4 or 5 yards? So many wide players get the ball now, and they're thinking, where's my central midfield player? And they're looking back over here, and I'm thinking, no. Saka doesn't do that. Martinelli, to be fair to him, doesn't do that. Wanyeri doesn't do that. His first thinking is, how do I get it in there? To my forward players, how do I get it in behind them? How do I play the runner? And Arsenal need to play with more risk because they haven't got a prolific goal scorer up front, so they're going to have to actually contribute and do things in different ways, which means that full-backs, wide players, midfield players are all going to have to, set pieces they obviously contribute as well. They're all going to have to basically contribute to make up for this fact that they haven't got this 25, 30 goal a season striker.
Absolutely.
I want to mention Gabriel and what he did to Haaland. It happened to me here, actually. Not here, it was at Highbury many, many years ago where a player came up and screamed in my face. We actually won the game 4-2 that day. I actually don't like it. I think it's a bit disrespectful. I get the fact that all the Haaland's the pantomime villain here today, but there's something about it that I didn't... I was many things, and to be fair, it was my game, full stop. I'm not sure whether that'll stay in the podcast or not. But I never did that. I never went and screamed in a player's face. I just didn't. There was something about that. I don't know what you think, Peter. I mean, you're a fan. You sort of maybe don't want to comment, but I don't know. I just felt there was something about that I thought made me feel a little bit uneasy, a little bit disrespectful.
Well, there certainly is a pantomime element, isn't there?
Yeah.
And you can interpret it, I suppose, as you see fit. So what about City? What's your interpretation of what you saw there? Because I suppose during that minute after they'd equalised, the game was in the balance, wasn't it? And they've lost 5-1.
Yeah, they deserved to get back in the game. Arsenal were waiting, and City, to be fair, were pushing, and Raya made a couple of great saves in the first half. They got the goal. I mean, as soon as Arsenal just literally flicked a gear, they were done. I mean, they were literally... I mean, look, I don't know what you thought about Phil Foden and whether he was... I don't know whether maybe the referee slightly got sidetracked or he's not seen Partey, but it was a straight pass. Partey was always there. It's not as if he's come from sort of like blind side or something. So I was really surprised that Phil Foden gives the ball away in that area, and that changed the game and the deflection. But I think the minute you play against Manchester City now and you raise the level of intensity, they really struggle. They really, really struggle. They haven't got the energy anymore as a team. In transition, they're poor. I have to say that I thought Pep Guardiola would have dealt a lot better and handled a lot better the loss of Rodri. I really did. And I think today even the contribution, if this was another manager, would be sat there saying, are you sure Bernardo Silva and Kovacic against Arsenal, who've got, Ødegaard, Rice and Partey, who are energetic and got real quality and power. So I think to actually give them a chance, maybe you pack that midfield with 3 or 4 players in there and maybe it's numbers. And then to add to that, I thought Foden would play in front. I did Phil Foden before the game thinking he'd go back in there to make up the 3 and he could be really busy around Partey and Rice and have the energy and the tenacity to get about them. But he played Phil Foden out on the wide right. Savino on the left, who I thought blocked Vardiel going forward the whole game. And Marmoush, who actually I thought had done really well playing from off the left side last week, making those runs in a position off Haaland where there was no space because, Arsenal did that sort of block really well. So I just thought maybe today Pep Guardiola got his team selection wrong. I think not just he gets team selection wrong, but I think he got his actual players in the actual system that he played in the wrong positions in Marmoush, Foden and Savino. I thought they all should have been in different positions. I thought Marmoush should have been on the left. I thought Savino should have been on the right. And I thought that Foden should have been in there with Kovacic and Bernardo Silva to at least provide some more competitiveness. Marmoush is obviously definitely a forward-thinking player, as Foden is, but he's got it in him, Foden, to get back and tackle and harass. So I just thought that was the first thing. They're defending badly as well. They're defending really, really badly. They're making mistakes. Today, one of the biggest problems has been their biggest strength. He almost has rewritten the rules of football, Pep Guardiola, of playing out from the back. Yet today, it was their downfall in the sense that they just got caught with so many straight passes into midfield and Arsenal being on top of them that they were the architects of their own downfall for much of that game. And yeah, it told us where City are currently at, that they need that rebuild. They need that reconstruction that Pep Guardiola obviously knows about, and I'm sure they're thinking about a big summer transfer window.
But they've got a hell of a month ahead, you know.
Oh, no.
They've got to play Real Madrid twice. They've got to play Liverpool, Newcastle, Spurs. They do get a week off now, and then a cup tie at Leyton Orient. Yeah. But beyond that, I mean, February is fearsome for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the realms now of a club that basically this season success would be, I think, I forget the Champions League. I just cannot see how they can win the Champions League with what we've seen here. They could get to a final of a competition, the FA Cup, but I think getting top four, getting that fourth place, I think would be really important for them. I mean, a bad season, if you can finish still in the Champions League, then, you know, they've won the league 5 years on the bounce. This is a sort of memorable team that Pep Guardiola and period that he's had. So there's still a lot of credit in the bank here, but they've now got to be thinking about, well, salvaging something out of this season, which is Champions League football for next season, and I think then making sure that they get their summer rebuild in order.
So just one bit of any other business, just to stress for people again, tomorrow will be the end of transfer deadline day. You'll have all sorts of business to cover then, and that will include Manchester United. But Marcus Rashford is obviously current news.
Yeah.
He's going to go to Aston Villa on loan. How do you feel about that?
A number of emotions. I think tinge of sadness thinking of Marcus Rashford, an 8-9-year-old Manchester United academy player, given a big contract a couple of years ago, having scored 30 goals and being sort of right at the top of his game, on and off the pitch. And then obviously the deterioration in the last couple of years have been alarming, to the point now whereby, I mean, it's an absolute must that he has to get out of Manchester United and Old Trafford. And I feel sad saying that. I never thought that a few weeks ago, let alone months ago. I thought when Ruben Amorim came in, we would see the, not resurgence of re-emergence of Marcus Rashford, but I thought we'd see sort of like a clean slate. It's got 10 times worse under Ruben Amorim for Marcus Rashford than it was under Erik ten Hag, in the sense that some of the things that have been said by his manager have been absolutely brutal, and he's only been with him 5 or 6 weeks, and they're a stain on his character. So he needs to get out. He needs the freedom away from Old Trafford. He needs to spend time at another club. And in terms of his move, he's going to a team that are far better than Manchester United at this moment in time. I mean, I watched the United game earlier. It didn't surprise me. It was awful. But he's going to a far better football team that are in the Champions League, that are in the FA Cup, that are in with a shout of getting into the Champions League again. And the most important thing for me is that I think he'll be playing under a world-class coach. That's the most important thing. And I think what Marcus Rashford needs at this moment in time is instruction. Ordinarily, you might say, I want to go out on the pitch, son, and enjoy it. That's not Unai Emery. It's not what Marcus Rashford needs. He needs real instruction and direction and discipline in his game. This is where I want you when the ball's here. This is where I want you when the ball's over this side. This is when I want you to run forward. This is how you link. This is how you play. And he's going to have 4 or 5 months of one of the best coaches in Europe to work with. Any distraction that he may have needs to go. Any sort of fallout that he may have with Manchester United and thoughts about what's happened at the club need to go. He needs to just go and play football and enjoy playing football in a really good team, a great club with a fantastic manager. And they're the big pluses, because he's going to a better team, a better group of players, and a better coach at this moment in time. That's not being critical of Ruben Amorim, but Unai Emery is one of the very best, and I think that's really important. So it might not be the sort of sexy move that maybe many thought could happen. Maybe Barcelona was mentioned at one point, but it's a really good, solid move for him. And what he now needs to go and do is not necessarily go and prove Manchester United wrong, but if he goes and scores 8 to 10 goals in the last 15, 16 games of the season, and he does well for Aston Villa, you're now starting then to look at Old Trafford again, with the fact that McTominay's left and excelled, and Sancho's gone to Chelsea and he's doing a lot better than he was at Old Trafford. He's starting to now look at the fact that, is Old Trafford the problem? We know it has been a problem for players, but this would be further evidence of it. So, it's going to be a case of, this is going to play out in the next few months of Marcus Rashford's left Old Trafford, all of a sudden he's fantastic again, or Marcus Rashford is the problem because he can't play football very well at Aston Villa. There'll be nothing in between. And there's a lot to be said. Look, he's had an enormous amount of coverage in the last few months, Marcus Rashford, in the last couple of years. But when you're taking on the government and achieving the things that he did all those years ago, when you're scoring 30 goals in a season for the most famous club in the world, the most written about club in the world, when you're getting the big bucks and you're getting the 5-year deal on huge money, it also comes with the huge criticism, the huge scrutiny. You can't escape that. And I've said this before, this happened with all the great players that have played at United and at other clubs as well. You know, like Mbappe now at Real Madrid, he's got the spotlight heavily on him all the time because he's signed for one of the greatest clubs, or one of the greatest clubs in the world and greatest clubs in Spain, and the scrutiny is higher than it will have been in Paris. So the fact of the matter is, there is an element of Marcus now just enjoying his football. I really want him to succeed at Aston Villa. I want him to go and score a ton of goals for them. I want him to get that smile back on his face and love his football again. We just talked about Lewis-Skelly, haven't we? And how enjoyable it is to watch him. You know, you watch Marcus in this last year or two, and it's just not looked like it was enjoyable. It's looked like it was a chore. And football can't be like that. You know what I mean? Those dreams that you have as a kid to play football at the highest level, and all of a sudden it just fades away like you wouldn't believe. And it's just, no, get that back, get that love and that hunger and that fight and that enjoyment back in your game. And then let's hope he can do really well for Aston Villa. Let's hope he can do really well for himself, because that works actually for Marcus Rashford, and it also works for United in that they'll probably then either decide they want to sell him in the summer, which I think would be a shame, or they can sell him somewhere else. So look, I think it's the right move for both parties, and I think it's the right move in the sense that if he went to Barcelona, you'd be sort of, you know, there'd be a lot of glare and a lot of it. I think he's going to a solid dressing room, a solid club, a fantastic manager, and I think that's what he needs now, solid people around him.
Well, really good luck to him.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary,
Thank
and you'll
you.
be back tomorrow with much, much more.
Yeah.
Thank you.